6676. Again, that's 954-303-6676. And tell him that Greg sent you directly from the Gift of Life. Health Plans Unlimited. We have the health plan for you.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Strike three! You're out!
Welcome to First and Goal with Greg and Freddie J, who bring you the scores, pregame predictions, and the latest sports news on the air. Greg and Freddie J invite you to call in at 888-565-1470 and let them know how you feel about what's going on in the sports world. And now, here is First and Goal with Greg and Freddie J, brought to you by Gift of Life Bone Marrow Foundation.
It's a long fly ball.
Hey everybody, welcome to our first show of the new year. It's First and Goal with Greg and Freddie J. I'm Greg Francis, and alongside of me, or across the table from me, is Freddie J. Freddie, Happy New Year to you, buddy.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone listening.
All righty. At First and Goal, for our first-time listeners, we attack all sports inside and outside of the lines. So we invite callers to call in this evening at 1-888-565-1470. Again, that's 1-888-565-1470. And Freddie, we have a lot on the docket today. We had the first round of the playoffs of the NFL season, and most of them, quite frankly, were boring games.
Yeah, we had a packed weekend full of football, I would say, all the way through the new year.
Yeah.
I mean, you turn on the TV and all they want to talk about was football. But, you know, surprisingly, the NFL games were a little bit boring, I have to admit.
Yeah, it really did. And for the new year, it didn't pop with a lot of pizzazz. But we'll certainly recap, the Alabama-Ohio State and the Bucks against Florida State. You're on cue.
I think every week I do that.
Every week at 6:35, Freddie sneezes, but that's okay. But we could talk about the Ducks that probably could have laid 80 on Florida State. But before we begin, we have to thank our signature sponsor, Gift of Life Bone Marrow Foundation. Gift of Life is located in Boca Raton, Florida, and it's the 12th largest bone marrow registry in the world. What does Gift of Life do? It recruits healthy donors who will either donate peripheral blood stem cells or bone marrow to critically ill patients suffering from blood cancer. Unfortunately, these patients do not have a match in their own family, and that's not unique, Freddie, as you know, because that only occurs about 30% of the time. Fortunately, that's where organizations like Gift of Life come in. They run over 1,000 drives per year, and to date, they saved over 3,000 lives. Just in 2014 alone, they saved 130 lives and those of their families as well. So I encourage everybody to get involved with Gift of Life, whether you want to run a drive, you want to make a contribution to help save somebody's life, you want to make a contribution to test kits and move forward getting healthy people into the registry. If you're interested, please visit their website at www.giftoflife.org or call them at their toll-free number, 1-800-9-MARROW. Again, that's Gift of Life, our signature sponsor, www.giftoflife.org, or call them at 1-800-9-MARROW. And Freddie, where do you want to go with the playoffs this week?
Let's start off with, I guess, my favorite game. Let's talk about those Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, they pulled it off like I said they would. Tony Romo surprised pretty much everyone. What do you think went wrong on the Lions side, and what do you think went well on the Cowboys side?
I'm going to start one of my favorite songs. I get for the Cowboys. I get by with a little help from the refs. but quoting an old Beatles song, I get by with a little help from my friends. But the refs blew 3 pivotal calls that I think would have put the game out of reach for the Cowboys. They, in fact, threw a flag on a PI, pass interference call, and then picked it up when it was clearly pass interference. I think Ken on the other side of the glass agrees with me. The defender didn't even look at the ball.
Well, would you consider that home cooking?
I think it was more than home cooking. You know what I don't necessarily like, Freddie, is the crews, the officiating crews are not the general crews that they work with during the season. It's the officials that get ranked the highest at their respective position, whether it's a line judge or a referee.
So you
an
get the
umpire.
all-stars of the refs.
Right, but they never work together. And officiating football is not a full-time position, so they probably have 3 days to review film. I just think that the crew in the Cowboys-Lions really, really blew it. But again, there was a winner and there was a loser, and I give the Cowboys kudos for their resilience because they were down 14-0 relatively quickly.
Yeah, you can't blame the refs completely. The Lions did help the Cowboys come back into this game. They were up 14-0 at one point, and it looked like the Cowboys were done. They looked defeated. They looked like they, didn't have anything left, and I don't know where they found the spark, and they just kept going with it. So,
and then the choking moniker for Romo would have come back because he would have lost the game. Again, this game disappointed me quite a bit because I felt that the Lions were robbed. Not to say that they would have hit the field goal or got a touchdown, but at the pivotal point in the game where they missed 2 calls, holding on Ndamukong Suh, as well as the pass interference, I think the Lions at the very least would have eaten clock and come away with 3 more points at a bare minimum. Again, I don't think Stafford played particularly well. I do not like the arm angle in which he throws. You wonder if Suh is going to come back. But for the Dolphins, DeMarco Murray had a pedestrian game. I think he went 19 for 75. Dunbar had a real nice game. Dez, again, serviceable. Witten moved the chains. But Romo, when he needed to make a big throw with limited time left, he made him. I mean, he had 7 seconds in the pocket, so I want to give the offensive line of Dallas some credit.
Yeah, and, to Tony Romo's credit, he is a professional and he is playing hurt. He did have a lot of bad throws, but, those throws, yes, they had an impact in the game, but he got the job done this time. And,
let's call it as it is. Give Tony Romo credit because everybody was waiting for him to fall on his face.
And I think they're still waiting for him to fall on his face. So I hope next week coming up, he proves everybody wrong again because I enjoy watching the Cowboys, play at this level. They've been in this predicament before. They just never got the job done. And it's nice to see Romo actually coming through.
I think he's a good quarterback. He has a little bit of, Peyton has a little bit of him. He doesn't step up for the big games. We discussed offline Andy Dalton, which was a train wreck, and we'll get into that game in a little bit. But on the whole, I thought the Lions did what they had to do to win the game. I think that the refs, and I normally don't blame officials because there's 70, 80 snaps on each side, but there was too many blown calls. And I honestly think that if it was just one isolated call, I could live with it. But there was about 3 calls for the Lions that didn't go their way. Was it home cooking? No, I don't believe so. Is the Cowboys America's team? You could argue with that. Is there a conspiracy theory?
So, Greg, my question to you is: should we bring back the replacement refs?
I don't think they could have done a worse job than these guys did on Sunday evening. But it was definitely out of the 4, for me at least, the most entertaining game.
Yeah, I have to agree. It was definitely the most entertaining. I also enjoyed the Cardinals-Panthers game. It's nice seeing teams you don't normally see do well. The Carolina Panthers proved me wrong again this week. They've come back quite a bit this year. They had to win 4 straight just to even make the playoffs, to even be a contender. So it's nice to see that they knocked off Arizona, and they're moving on.
What I didn't understand, and I'll differentiate because I know that you've been riding the Panther bandwagon. Let me give them credit because they were 3-8-1 and hung out to dry.
Oh yeah, so we didn't even consider them to make the playoffs or be a wild card or anything. They win the division. I was looking
at them to maybe get a top 10 draft pick, but at this point they won 4 straight. They did what they had to do, and they had a home game against the Cardinals. Now here's my concern. You have Lindley, 4th string quarterback or 3rd string quarterback.
I mean, he wasn't even on the roster at one point.
he didn't look like he could play for, Omni High School or Omni Middle
Honestly,
School.
you look in the man's eyes, and he looked like it was his first time playing in the NFL.
And I mean, he's a 4-year starter at San Diego State. I never saw. It was one of the worst QB performances that I've ever seen.
Or was it one of the best defensive stands that you've ever seen? I'm not sure.
Let me give the Panthers credit. I think Kuechly, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, I apologize, from Boston College, and Thomas Davis. The linebackers are just fierce. I mean, they're all over the place, left and right, and tackling and intercepting. And it was one of the best linebacking performances that I saw by Luke Kuechly in a long time. The issue that I had was you had that backup on the bench from Virginia Tech, the quarterback. Even if you ran a read option, there's no which way that somebody could be better than Lindley. I know that he supposedly had really awful practices. I mean, beyond bad. But you have to say that in some respect that give them a shot in the arm. Maybe, he'll have a metamorphosis of something.
Put somebody else back there. I mean, get a running back that can throw, or a wide receiver that can throw a little bit, and just run the option and hope that.
I mean, Carolina looked like they were playing men against boys. One thing from Carolina that did disturb me was the mechanics of Cam Newton.
Oh, yes, definitely.
His arm angle. I mean, I never thought that he was a mechanically sound quarterback. I always just loved that he was 6'5", 250, built like a linebacker.
He could take a hit.
He could take a hit, but he was throwing off his back foot, arm arch backwards, and for somebody that's strong, he was and tall, he was throwing like he was a 5'8" quarterback.
Yeah, he threw a lot of ducks.
Yeah, and just the arm level in which he throws, him and Stafford, it just mechanically, it just bothers me so much. But his was very, very pronounced. I just didn't like the way that he played the game. Jonathan Stewart looked absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah,
really looked phenomenal. Benjamin, to me, was a non-factor. He was covered by Peterson.
He was on early. They threw at Peterson very early in the game, and Benjamin, he made some nice catches, but I think Peterson locked him down towards the end.
Peterson locked him down. With Benjamin, the issue that I have is, he can make an amazing catch, but if you hit him in the numbers, he has a lot of dropsies, and that was his problem at Florida State as well. But you can't teach 6'5". I mean, he doesn't have blinding speed, but in the red zone, if you toss it up, he
can go up and get it.
He's 7 inches taller than your next general DB. Again, I don't think the Panthers, and we could go into this, but I'll preempt by saying I don't think that they're going to win next week. But the way that they're smashing the football, even D'Angelo Williams, they had Tolbert, they had Jonathan Stewart had a renaissance. They had a nice game. The Cardinals, had a very formidable defense this year, and when they lost Carson Palmer and they lost Drew Stanton,
I think they fell apart.
Yeah,
offensively they fell apart, and defensively they just couldn't keep up. I mean, you're playing the game 48 minutes on defense. You're bound to give up some points. So.
And the way that they were running the read option, and in a few plays where it looked like all the receivers were covered, then Cam Newton made a really nice run either to the corner or up the middle for, 12 yards or 14 yards. So I think Cam Newton did real well with his legs. I did not trust his throwing at all.
I didn't trust him throwing the ball. What I liked, though, towards the end of the game, during the press conference, he commented on his inability to throw the ball accurately because he was throwing off his back foot. And he alluded that he didn't know what was the mechanical problems, but he was going to work on it in practice. And, that shows maturity in Cam Newton. And, a couple of years ago, you couldn't say that. You could say, oh, Cam Newton has the flash and, he has the mouth, but can he actually perform?
And he would sulk on the sidelines with the Gatorade towel over his head.
Yeah, and you can't do that.
But you want to know something? I do want to say something. He's 2 weeks removed from a serious car accident where he didn't know if he was going to live. And he's out there playing an NFL game, so I want to give him, first and foremost, I'm very happy that he's physically healthy. Whoever would have thought that somebody would have, after a horrific car accident, been playing in an NFL game 2 weeks later. He did. Congratulations to Riverboat Ron Rivera and whose house I heard burnt down, but he escaped and nobody got hurt, which is another good thing for a bad situation. So I know that was really one of your games. I didn't find the game entertaining at all. The Cardinals were just really, really tough to watch.
I feel like the Cardinals were bad to watch, but I enjoyed watching Cam Newton and the success of the Panthers defense doing really well. It surprised a lot of people that they were even there, and to pull out a win against the Cardinals, who were, the strong favorites, even though they had a 4-string quarterback in there. You still have to tip your hat to the Cardinals for the regular season. The Panthers were just a better team this weekend, and I think they might be able to knock off the Seahawks. I'm not going to say which side I'm picking yet, because that's later on in the show, but I think defensively they can stand toe-to-toe with the Seahawks.
We'll go into that in a little bit. My favorite way to settle sports, and I've always been a fan of the English Premier League and other soccer leagues, where every team plays every team twice, once at their home and once at the other team's home, so they call it a home-and-home series. And there's no playoffs, there's no anything. The regular season really is the full Monty, except that the parity is that everybody plays everybody 2 times. The bottom 3 teams get relegated to the minors, and the top 3 teams from the minors get promoted into the first division or the premiership. And what and the NCAA March Madness, which we're going to talk about later in the season, it's phenomenal. Even the baseball wild card, the football wild card, but I don't always think the best team over a sustained period of time wins. And that's what I love about the regular season of soccer. The regular season is the playoffs, and it's the same with La Liga and the Bundesliga in Germany. I'm not a fan of playoffs in American sports, and I'm one of the few. In hockey, it's so watered down that over 50% make it. Basketball, 50% makes it. They're increasing it in baseball.
They just want more games, more fans, more money.
In baseball, at least I could justify it a little bit because there's 162 games.
Yeah, I don't think baseball needs any more games.
No, it doesn't have any games because the impact per game. But maybe if a team is 25 games up in July, the rest of the season is really moot. So it's a moot point. So I understand the wild card there, but football wants to include 2 more teams. So now it would be 14 out of 32.
What do you think about that? I don't know if that's better or worse, or is it just greed or trying to give the fans what they want, which is more football?
Well, it gives more teams more football, probably will increase revenues. ESPN, had a game on their station, I think, for the first playoff game this year. It used to be 2 on NBC and 2 on CBS, and now it's 1 on Fox the first week, 1 on NBC, 1 on CBS, 1 on ESPN. But I like the regular season, and I think it has to have some merit. And with increasing the playoff pool, it just, to me, doesn't I think it loses its luster. So it's an interesting point. I always loved the European philosophy of the way that the soccer was run and that the regular season was the only season. With the NCAA, and we talk all sports, Frederick, they have conference championships. They have, that's an automatic qualifier. So if you have a team that's in a not a reputable league, but take Iona, because we're both from New York.
Yeah.
And somebody in that type of league, the NEAC, goes 26-5, but they may lose 1 game in their conference tournament,
and they're
not going to get into the NCAA tournament. So I just don't like the way that these.
So you don't like the one and done situation like the NFL has.
No,
one game and whoever wins moves on.
I'm generally not a fan of it. I think that a better sample size in baseball is that all the series should be 4 out of 7, and the same with basketball. But limit the number of teams that make the playoffs. I mean, because
how would you do it in football though?
Football, you can't. Football, you can't because they take it's too much of a physical beating.
Yeah, I mean, these guys get hit week in, week out. You want to put them to play each other more than once?
The question that bears asking is, does 4 division make sense? Because it's an unbalanced schedule. because you're playing twice. It's a 16-game season, and generally the way that it's done is that each division you play a home and away. So that's 6 games right then and there.
Yep.
And then you play a whole other division in the conference that you're in and another conference, which comes out to 14 games. And then based on how you finished in the preceding year, then you play 2 wild card teams. So it's an unbalanced schedule. I wish that there was some type of balance, and going to an 18-game schedule would make some type of sense for me, and I'll tell you why. Putting aside the physical beating. If you played an 18-game regular season schedule and you move the amount of active people to 53 or 55 every given week, and let's say that you played 3 divisions, people outside your division, you play in 3 different divisions, that would be 12 games. And then people in your division that you play twice would be then the other 6. So it would be a balanced schedule.
Okay.
So again, I like a balanced schedule more than an unbalanced schedule. And an 18-game season would clear up, the anomaly of the 2 teams, because you finished in 4th place and you're playing somebody else, in 4th place. So I would like them to go to an 18-game schedule and maybe cut down a wild card team. It's a good enough sample size, and 21 games 22 games could kill somebody in football.
Yeah, I have to agree. What about adding 2 new teams to the playoffs as opposed to taking away a team and adding 2 games into the regular season?
I think it would waters down the regular season. And the regular season in football to me is the most intriguing because each game counts 6.67%. Where in hockey and basketball, each individual game is like 1.2%, and baseball, it's less than 1%. So again, the impact of NFL and why I think it's so popular is because of the level of commitment with the fans is not as big as it is in basketball, baseball, and hockey. Also, the games with the West Coast and East Coast biases, as we mentioned on prior shows, that in East Coast games that start at 7, and the West Coast it's 4 o'clock, people are at work. And for the West Coast games that start at 7 p.m., it's 10 p.m. in the East Coast. So
people are either going to bed
or getting ready. They can't follow it as avidly as they could in football because you're generally, with the exception of here or there, you're talking if a team plays 16 games, 14 of them should be on Sunday at a time where you could watch it at any part of the region. So I think the level of commitment only having to adhere 1 day, 3 hours makes it a really, and with the advent of fantasy football, I think that whole amalgamation really makes it enjoyable for the fan and, not a huge commitment.
How many hours do you think you watch football on a weekly basis?
I'm a football junkie, so I watch the pregame, I watch the Wwnn, I have the DirecTV 4.
So you start your day at 11 or 12, and then you just go all the way through the weekend.
The night game, and then obviously Monday night, and I watch Thursday night, and I watch college football on Saturday, but I love the game of football.
Yeah, so my question is to the average person out there, how many hours of TV do you think you watch, or how many hours of football do you think you watch a week? College, including college and the NFL, I would say an average person, you watch more than 1 game in a day. You maybe watch not a whole game, but you watch maybe two games, 3 games.
And if I could throw this out of somebody that could call in, are you watching games or you're watching the Red Zone channel?
That's a good question. Like me and my roommates, I definitely watch the Red Zone channel just so I can watch the scores, but I do have a separate TV to watch my favorite games. So yeah, I am a football junkie, so I'm a little bit on the extreme side, but I really want to know, what's it like to be an average person, just, wake up, oh, football's on, I'm going to watch this game, and then I'm going to go on with the rest of my day. I really don't know how many Americans are doing that.
I haven't missed a Jet game live or on TV in over 20 years. I don't know if that's something to brag about, but no other team, the Yankees, if I follow college basketball, no team will I work my weekend around to not miss a game.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking all those baseball diehard fans that go to every home game or season tickets. Hockey and basketball are the same thing. I'm just talking to those average people that maybe you don't even have a favorite team. if you do, but honestly, how many hours of TV do you watch on the weekend to watch football?
No, it is. I tell you, for an actual game, the game of baseball is my favorite game. And I know we're coming up against a commercial break, but the game of football is my favorite to watch, except for World Cup soccer. But the actual game of baseball is my favorite sport. I think it's a beautiful game.
Oh, yeah, it was my favorite sport until I learned what a football was. But yeah, going back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, we're gonna come back from the break. We're gonna talk a little bit about the Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe get to the Bengals and Colts. That game was kind of a bore, but so if you are out there and you're listening and you want to answer our question, the number here is 888-565-1470. Again, that's 888-565-1470. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about sports. So stay tuned.
Are you in the market for a health plan? If so, please visit my good friend Gary at Health Plans Unlimited. No plan is too big or too small. Gary will customize a plan that's affordable and comprehensive, just for you. If you're interested, please visit Gary Goldman, the best in the biz, at www.healthplansunlimited.com. Again, that's www.healthplansunlimited.com. Or you can call Gary Goldman directly on his personal line at 954-303-6676. Again, that's 954-303-6676. And tell him that Greg sent you directly from the Gift of Life. Health Plans Unlimited. We have the health plan for you.
Throwitbetter.com. Do you need help with your bowling game? Are you taking the right 5-step approach? If you want to become a competitive bowler, even a recreational bowler that's considering joining a league, or a league bowler that is considering joining a tournament, you need to see Vince. He's going to show you how to throw it better. He'll get you the right equipment. He'll show you the right approach. And as a certified coach, he'll put you in the best position to succeed. If you're interested, please contact Vince at throwitbetter@gmail.com and tell him that Greg sent you. Again, that's throwitbetter@gmail.com, or call Vince at 954-541-5414.
Talk 1470 WWNN Pompano Beach, Boca Raton, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
If you own a business and have the need for commercial insurance, I suggest you call Chris Moore of Brown & Brown Insurance in Fort Lauderdale. Chris has been in the commercial insurance business for over 30 years and can handle any company's need for property, general liability, workers' compensation, and automobile, just to name a few. Brown & Brown, being countrywide and the 5th largest agency in the country, gives Chris the tools he needs to meet all your insurance needs. So call Chris at 954-331-1420. Again, that's 954-331-1420. We want to extend a special thanks to our friends at the Boca West Foundation for all the wonderful work they do for Gift of Life and for all the meaningful service they give to the Boca Raton community. For over 3 years, the Boca West Foundation has generously supported local charities in the Boca Raton area. The Boca West Foundation. It's all about the kids.
Strike three! You're out!
You're listening to First and Goal with Greg and Freddie J. This show is brought to you by Gift of Life Bone Marrow Foundation. Call and share the gift of life. Become a donor today. Now, back to our hosts, Greg and Freddie J.
It's a long fly ball.
Welcome back to First and Goal with Greg and Freddie J. I'm Freddie J here with Greg Francis, and right before we left, we had a impromptu question. How many fans out there are watching just 3 hours of football, 6 hours? We just want to know, so call in. The number here is 888-565-1470.
And during our first segment, we spoke about the poor officiating in with the Cowboys and Lions. And lo and behold, we have a referee in studio Mr. Jeff Brown from Palm Beach that may be able to explain the calls or non-calls. Maybe I'm just dead wrong, Freddie.
Jeff Brown, what was your take on those calls in that game?
There should have been some discussion to the fans, letting them know, what went on. For example, the flag they picked up, they simply picked up the flag and continued with the game and explained it after the game. They should have explained what was being picked up, why was it being picked up, and how did we get to the place they got, rather than just silently doing it, leaving everybody watching TV or in the ballpark wondering, what in the world happened when you got a flag and then you don't have a flag.
Let me ask you a question, Jeff. They mentioned numerous times that the officiating crew was voted based on the merits of how they did during the regular season. So there wasn't any synergy between that crew that was in the playoffs and the normal crews that worked a week-to-week basis. Do you think that has to change at a certain point?
Well, it's difficult if you're with the same crew or the same set of guys all year and you develop, one, bonding, and two, how people work together, and you have some experience together to get to the playoffs, and then you have, quote, an all-star crew or people that haven't worked together. It's very hard to come together and not have problems.
Especially being that football, it's a part-time job. Being an NFL official, they normally have full-time positions. But let's get to the call itself, the first one on a pass interference. In your opinion, was it pass interference?
Well, it was either holding or pass interference, because when I saw it, it looked like he held his jersey and then he did not play the ball. There was contact. In my opinion, the receiver would have had a chance on the ball but for the contact. And if you're not playing the ball and there's contact, you're the one that's gonna pay with a flag.
Okay, so at that juncture of the game, then we had Detroit up by 6. And they were moving along, and they were going to be in field goal range. So I know that Jim Caldwell, the coach of the Lions, said that you have to take the human element. I don't know how you could take the human element out of whether something's a holding call or a pass interference. I think that's getting to a whole nother dimension.
It's a human world. So
Yeah.
You have human refs, you have human players, you have mistakes, coaches, players, officials. It's a fast game. And human nature being what it is, you don't want perfection or robots. That's not why we watch. That's not why we watch football. We watch it to enjoy it, and I think controversy is part of the sport.
I wholeheartedly agree with what you said. Referees, officials, umpires get paid to make calls, whether they're right or wrong. Hopefully, they get a lot more right than wrong, and they have split-second decision. At this point, though, do you think that the NFL is going to gear towards keeping crews together throughout the playoffs, or you think that they're going to continue on this trajectory of keeping, merit-based or all-star or whatever nomenclature that you want to use for the playoffs?
I think they're going to keep the all-star, because I think they're using as an incentive and a way to rank officials and a way to get everybody working towards advancing. So I think there's pros and cons, but I think they're going to stay with the all-star, where you earn it and you get ranked. The eye in the sky every play. There's no plays.
So there's a reviewing process that goes on after the games. All the refs are reviewed just as the players.
Every week they're rated. So let me ask the follow-up question, which they've been dancing around for a couple of years. The NFL right now is a multi-billion-dollar business. Do you think that it's going to ever inure in where they're going to be full-time employees, the referees, as opposed to part-time once a week where they come down, study film for a day, and then do the game and then go back to their respective positions?
I do see that as the next logical step. Certainly the umpires do it. Certainly the NBA does it. I could see the NFL going to full-time. They could put them to work during other things in the off season and even during the season,
or even training.
They could train other officials. They could work in the communies.
What about working at the college level?
They could do both, and I don't think they now do it. But yes, you could. There's a lot of ways to do it where the game of football would become a full-time job with no outside.
But
like it is now.
even you're talking about such a minimal amount of specialists in it, whether it's a field judge, an umpire, a head referee, that even if they entertain paying them six-figure positions, it's something that the NFL could certainly afford. And even it's for 16, 17 weeks, because they probably get a bye week along the way when teams don't. I think that would be the logical nexus going forward.
Well, with all the TV revenue and all the revenue that's being generated, it only makes sense to turn that into a full-time position, in my opinion.
No, I happen to agree. I don't think that the referees would ever go for it because they get to make a full-time wage, up to six figures, working about 10 hours a week, and then some of them, like our friend here, Jeff is a attorney as well, and they go they go back to their normal jobs. They all across the board, they all have different jobs where they go to Monday through Thursday, and then they get their assignment and so on and so forth.
They're in all walks of life. I mean, you've got the high school principals, you've got the attorneys. That's my profession. A lot of different salesmen. There's a lot of different occupations out there on the field.
And I just want to let the crowd know, or let the audience know, Jeff, how long have you been a ref?
Will probably begin my 39th or 40th year in Palm Beach County.
So you've seen a lot of you've had a lot of experience. I'd put it that way.
Probably seen a lot of
seasons.
talent. You've seen.
Well, I refereed Emmett Smith's last high school football game
Wow.
in a state championship or semifinals, whatever it was. So yes, in the playoffs you go around the state. So I've seen some decent players.
Going outside the lines, what is your recommendation if somebody, because I heard that there is a shortage of referees in the Broward, Palm Beach, Dade County. I don't know if you could allude to that.
Well, statewide there certainly is. There's a lot more to being a referee. There's a lot more criticism. There's a lot more problems, sometimes with fans, with coaches, with the licensing. It's becoming more and more of a burden and more roundly criticized. So a lot of people are shying away from entering, and a lot of people are leaving. And I do think we have a shortage.
What would somebody have to do in order to get licensed?
All you have to do is join a local association and then join the state, both of which are very easy. What you really need is the desire to want to do it and the willingness to learn the rules, and then be able to communicate with fellow officials, referees, fans, and conduct yourself. But it's a heck of an avocation.
You got the best speed. Sorry, you have the best seat in the house. I would say you're right on the field with these players. Why wouldn't you want to do it?
No, well,
Friday Night Lights is fun.
Friday night, no, but you know what it is. A lot of times, referees never get applauded for the good calls. It's really the bad calls, and there could be a lot of friction if you're in a hostile rival game. And again, we were talking with Jeff as well, Jeff Brown, football Jeff last
Jeff Van Trees.
Van Trees. Welcome to First and Goal.
Thank you. I've been a basketball ref for about 10 years now. I did flag football for a year. And to answer your question about why do people shy away from this, it's about, I think, 1 out of 3 or maybe even half of every new official, of all new officials, quit after their first year. And that's just because
You got to have a tough skin.
you have to have a tough skin. I've been escorted out of gyms by law enforcement, by school police on a few
Hopefully, it
occasions.
wasn't a bad call.
Well, that's some people might have opinions that may differ on that, but you just have to have a really thick skin. And we were also talking earlier locally. There's some inconveniences associated with you have to be fingerprinted now every 4 years. You have to take a day off work to do that often because there's limited hours as to when you can do that. Fees that are associated with it and so forth. But as far as actually, you asked about the license, it's just basically taking a test, getting evaluated in order to do varsity games, and that holds true for pretty much every sport.
With the new focus on head injuries, is there concussion protocols that you have to go through as a referee?
Well, I can speak for basketball. Yes, we have a very strict concussion rule. I enforce it. That's probably the one rule that I absolutely enforce as strictly as I possibly can. if you have any reason to suspect a concussion, you have to stop the game, and you have to make sure that that player doesn't have a concussion before they can continue playing. You'll send them out of the game. They have to be evaluated by a medical professional, a nurse or doctor. Otherwise, they can't come back in. Even if you realize that they don't have a concussion after stopping the game, they have to go out for one play and come back. So there are procedures in place. And since we are independent contractors, this is now where the legal side comes in for myself and Jeff. We are subject to potentially being sued if we don't take the appropriate precautions.
Yeah.
So
Safety is the biggest thing out there right now, and it should always be. If you can't play at a safe level, then you shouldn't be playing the game. So that's actually very important.
Well, as far as the insurance, because you're both attorneys, are you under the umbrella of the Florida State High School Association, or do you have to carry your own insurance as a referee? Because I know also the scalability of getting paid, I think it's on the more nominal side in the beginning. And you said that it is a inconvenience with travel. I know that you would get travel reimbursement probably, but just the time associated with it. Is that why some people don't make it through year one, because of the cost profit reward?
that could be part of it. Also, we get paid the same regardless of where we go. So you could send one of us out to Pahokee or Belglade. It's the same as something close by. Fortunately, we have an excellent administrator in Palm Beach County that I can speak of. That's Yetta Green, who does her absolute best to works tirelessly. I've never met anyone that's worked as hard as this woman, to, among other things, try to keep us within our geographic range. And she juggles a million tasks. I'm sure you can comment about Yetta.
Well, I've known Yetta for 40 years, and she is one of a kind in Palm Beach County. We're lucky to have her. And she does juggle, and she does everything. Insurance is an issue. Some people have it, some people don't. In my football association, I've offered to defend any of us who are brought into a lawsuit. I was involved in some soccer litigation involving referees and coaches. So it's a factor, and it may scare some people away or chase some people away who are concerned about it. But safety is paramount, as you mentioned, and that's pretty sacrosanct with every official I know, that that's something that, there can be no discretion. You can't warn, you have to be very careful of safety. The parents are sending their children out to play, and they expect you to keep them as safe as you can. It may be a rough sport or a violent sport, and you play within the rules, but we have to enforce the rules, and safety is clearly top shelf.
I was just going to add to that sometimes the complaints that I've gotten on a number of occasions, especially in rec leagues when we're officiating younger kids, 10 years old and so forth, is we're calling the game too tight, we're not letting them play, we're calling too many fouls and so forth. The reverse of that is that if we don't call those things,
it gets a little out of hand.
Gets a little out of hand, and kids at a very young age, I've even seen age groups as young as 7, 8 years old, that they can do damage to each other. They can throw elbows, they can do all sorts of things. And part of safety is calling the game in such a way that players are going to be dissuaded from potentially hurting each other.
Yeah, I coach. I've coached recreational soccer. I coach select soccer, and at a young age, it is a slippery slope in the sense that if the ball goes into a box at a young age, the referee calls it a dead ball because they don't want somebody kicking the goalie in the face in soccer. By the same token, you're not necessarily teaching them the rules of the game. So I know safety trumps everything else, but I've seen referees that call it way, way too tight, where I think they're going 2 standard deviations above what normal safety would be. And other ones where kids that aren't the most coordinated are going with flying elbows and knocking people. So I've seen the whole gamut, so I appreciate that. But did anybody on the set here spend the time watching the Bengals Colts on Sunday?
I saw bits and pieces, but not to any great extent.
But because we did promise that we were going to comment on the...
well, we have you guys here. We can certainly do this with you guys on here. We also have a caller that should be calling in soon to see if they won. They're actually on the air right now. Caller, are you there?
Gentlemen, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm sure he's doing quite well.
I feel like I'm walking on there right now.
Yes, we waited to the last minute to make sure that you can come on and gloat a little bit. Let's talk about the games that you won and the games that you lost. You obviously know that you already have won based off the 4 games. Which games were the most surprising for you?
Which game was the most what?
Surprising for you.
Well, let's give him his due. Fred, welcome to the show and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you guys. It's a great show. I think that the Steeler game surprised me a little bit because I thought that Ratzenberger was going to have a better game than he showed. A lot of pressure up front, so that's the one I got wrong. I thought that Carolina was going to win and the other ones were simple. But I have some upsets coming up, I think, in the next round.
I do have to, though. I'm sorry, Fred. I do have to, though, let you get away with a disclaimer because when we did speak last Tuesday, we were all under the assumption that Le'Veon Bell was going to play. when you picked the Steelers to win, and when Le'Veon Bell went out, their running game went in the garbage. So I think that you could have been 4-0 under possibly normal circumstances. But what do you have on the docket this week?
Well, I know that the Ravens are going to go up to see the Patriots. I'm going to be picking the Ravens to upset the Patriots.
Okay.
All right, Cool Joe maybe. Cool Joe will beat. He's picking Cool Joe to beat Brady. I think when Bill Belichick has too much time to prepare, I feel comfortable with the Patriots. But we're still taking you to Avon Louis.
One thing that Brady doesn't like, he doesn't like getting hit, and I think he's going to get hit a lot.
Well, the Ravens' defense did look pretty good on Sunday, so yeah, you might be right. I think he's going to take a lot of hits, but it's not something he's not used to. Gronkowski is one of those people that he's going to look to this week, and
Edelman will be back.
Edelman's back, and
I'll tell you why I think the Patriots. There's the Darrelle Revis factor. He's going to take away half the field. So again, he'll probably be locked up on Torrey Smith.
I
don't think so.
I have to disagree with you there. I think Flacco and the Ravens might throw at Revis more on this game, just because like you said, he's going to take away half the field because of that respect. I'm the Ravens. I go in there and the first thing I do is throw at him to see what kind of game he's going to have. And try to shake him a little bit, but he's going to be on his game. Darrelle Revis, he's an all-star player.
So who are you going with, Freddie?
I'm gonna stick with the Pats, though.
All right, so Fred, you're going with the Ravens, and Greg and Freddie J are going with the Patriots. So we'll go next.
Panthers, Seahawks.
Seahawks.
All right, I agree.
Panthers. I just think too much defense for Cam Newton to do what he did with the Reeds.
The Legion of Boom will dominate.
I'm going to agree with you there, and I think Greg is also going to agree. But I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina did actually pull an upset on the Seahawks. They have the momentum going in. What do you think? What would be the biggest advantage that the Seahawks has besides being home and having the Legion of Doom and having the 12th man? What else could they throw at the Panthers to pull up the win?
You mean the Panthers or the Seahawks?
The Seahawks, yes.
The Seahawks should win. The Seahawks should win the game. I mean, their defense is number 1 ranked. Russell Wilson generally doesn't make mistakes. Baldwin is a nice receiver. Marshawn Lynch seems to do his best work in the playoffs. Where I wouldn't be surprised is if the Panthers got lucky with special teams and got off to a quick lead. Seattle doesn't have that quick strike offense. That's the only way that I could see the Panthers winning because they're not an offensive juggernaut. So their defense usually sets up field position, etc. So, again, I don't see it being a particularly close game. I like the Seahawks in that one.
What do you guys think on the set?
All other than the players, it's going to be the Seahawks, the coaching staff, the home field advantage, and the playoff experience. So it won't be the players; it'll be the off the field things that bring it home for the Seahawks.
And the referees won't even play an account of this one.
Cowboys, Packers.
I like the Packers. They're at home. It's going to be super, super, super cold.
You don't think Romo pulls the upset?
Listen, I'm glad that Dallas won because it made me win the pool. But Dallas should not have won that game. Sorry. And I don't think that they're going to be able to keep up with MVP of Green Bay. It's just not going to happen. The cold weather is going to slow the running game down. And Des Bryant, I never see. I have a question for the refs on the panel. When the flag was dropped, Des Bryant ran onto the field and screamed at the refs.
Great.
I may not know a lot about football, but isn't that a penalty?
Yes, and it should have been called, and it wasn't. And the referee apparently decided he wasn't going to throw the flag. But between that number of officials, there should have been a flag for against Des Bryant.
So another referee should have put himself and threw the flag. And do you ever think it's the refs see the star in front of them and not the person, not the play?
Well, you hate to take the star out because
LeBron James gets calls here and there, and
but
same thing in football. Des Bryant, he's a great receiver. Maybe he got away with a penalty there.
Maybe it's not the star in Des Bryant. What about the star in the middle of the field that says Cowboys? Do you think that there's sometimes any home cooking involved?
I personally don't. I don't think that home cooking is a good term to describe what happens. I don't think. But I don't think they like to decide things based on the non-play. So I think they gave him a break.
Okay.
And I think it should have been a flag.
No, that's a great point, Fred.
I was also going to add just about the home field advantage in general and the effect that it has on officials. Generally, I don't think I've known any official that has any interest in appeasing the home crowd. I mean, it makes absolutely no difference who wins a game. What some studies have shown psychologically is that there's a subconscious bias only to the extent that referees may doubt their own perception.
Yeah.
That they're getting very negative feedback from a crowd and they might doubt themselves. However, for people like myself and Jeff and everyone that has ref professionally, if you've ever been on TV, if you've ever seen yourself on camera, you can have a situation where you call one thing, the crowd erupts and protests against it, and you find out that you were right, and then you don't ever trust the crowd again. And I'd say that that's certainly true for anyone reffing in the NFL.
All right.
Greg, before we move on, Cowboys or Packers?
Pack.
You're getting down to the bottom. Yeah, but a quick question. When they put the replays up on the scoreboard, and you obviously see that the call was blown, and it's on a scoreboard. I mean, in Dallas they use 200-foot screens, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, you don't need it. You don't need an instant replay with that giant screen in the middle of the field.
That's my point. You pick up the flag, or you change the call, or whatever, because you see it's all around.
It's just, with the 200-foot jumbotron, everybody in the state of Texas saw that they missed the pass interference and or holding and unsportsmanlike conduct.
My question for the referees in the room: could they have picked that flag up? Is it in the rules that they are allowed to pick up that flag?
Yes. You had two officials with different perspectives and views, and the one was able to convince the referee I had a better look.
Okay.
And pick it up, and that's what they did in that case. So it's part of the rules.
It's part of the rules. They don't normally have a hierarchy. Because you're the head ref, I'm going to go with you, or is it because he had a better shot? Or
the white hat has to determine from talking which way he's going to go. Now, whether there's biases for seniority or reputation or whatever it might be, or who had the better angle, who's a more forceful speaker. All of those human factors come into play. But in this case, the white hat had to go with some call. What you should do probably is consult and have the two refs speak, and all three, the white hat and the two refs, before you announce a flag and then pick it up. That's what looked bad.
Yeah, exactly. The lack of explanation after a flag is picked up. I know we're going against the 2-minute warning.
Yeah, we have one more game to pick. Colts, Broncos.
Fred, what do you like?
I like the Broncos in that game. I don't think the Colts are going to. They're an indoor team going to a very cold climate. I like the Broncos.
I'm going to go against the grain. I don't trust Peyton Manning in big games, and I'm going to go with the Colts. I think that Andrew Luck, with his last name being the operative word, may get a little lucky. I think you pay Peyton for the regular season. You don't pay him for the postseason. And,
The Colts and the Broncos have gone up against each other once or twice, and we've seen this play out before. Both teams winning, Broncos being the Colts and the Colts being the Broncos. So this could be a toss-up.
The Broncos do not. The Colts don't have a dominant pass rusher like they did in Mathis before. So we have the 1 minute warning. So we better clean this up quick. I think giving Peyton a lot of time does work to his advantage. C.J. Anderson's been running like a beast. Boom Herron has to hold on to the ball to see if the Colts have any chance. But where I like the Colts in this one, I'm going to go against the grain. I'm not a Peyton believer in the postseason. Fred, before we go, we're on 30 seconds. I think if Oregon wanted to, they could have put up about 80 against Florida State.
Yeah, I wish we could get to that before the national championship game. While we have you guys here, Oregon, Ohio State. What do you guys say?
Oregon, they got a lot of offense, and the world is momentum is in their favor. I'm
thinking the same way. I was very impressed with Oregon's performance.
Ducks over Bucks by about 30.
I'm the only one that's going to go with the Bucks. I hope I'm right. But we'll talk a little bit more about it next week after the game.
All righty. We want to thank Freddie J. Happy New Year. And we want to thank our special guests, Jeff Brown and Jeff Van Treese, for joining First and Goal with Greg and Freddie J. We'll be here same time, same place next week. Everybody have a good week and God bless.
Thank you for listening to First and Goal with Greg and Freddie J. Today's show brought the latest opinion of our hosts, and they welcome any comments and thoughts by calling or writing to Freddie Jr. at amp2.tv. That's Freddie Jr. at amp2.tv. Write in and win a chance to have your comments read on the air. Today's show was brought to you by Gift of Life Bone Marrow Foundation. Be a donor and share the gift of life. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff,